What's up, guys? Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 129. We have Thomas Peterson and Waldo Cortes-Acosta in the main event for the heavyweight championship. Bellator veteran Hyder Amil in the co-main, and some more upcoming prospects on the main card to talk about today. Should be a good LFA card coming up. It's coming to us live this time from Prior Lake, Minnesota. So some good Minnesota prospects on this card, as well as some other guys just from the Midwest in general. So should be a fun card. And with that said, let's get right into the first fight on the main card. So the first fight on the main card, we have Quang and Sam Paneitz. This is going to be a bantamweight fight. Lee 3-0. He was a 7-4 amateur. He is a 3-0 pro. Has 2 submission wins as a pro, 2 wins on the LFA prelims, and now he's on the main card. And we saw him get a finish on LFA 120 prelims over Austin Robinson. Scored a rear naked choke victory just over a minute into the first round. Had a nice win on the prelims on the LFA 115 card as well. Both of those cards were actually really excellent cards. So, that's nice to see. In his last fight, he was on Ignite Evolution, got a neck crank win in the first round over Dan Sokolovsky. Not the strongest strength of schedule, I wouldn't say, for Quang Le, but he is getting it done. He has finishes in his last 2 fights, 2 wins over debuting fighters while he was still very early in his career in his debut and then in his first fight. And then his last fight was against a 4-10 opponent. So not super strong opposition, but definitely not bad. Good experience, 3-0 start to the career. You love to see that. Sam Paneitz is going to be his opponent here, and he had a very extensive and very successful amateur career where he was 13-1. He was the flyweight champ at Tough Enough, and he had some IMMAF amateur experience as well. So now he's at the pro level. He's 2-1 as a pro. Got caught early in a guillotine in his pro debut, but he followed that up, with 2 losses, looking good coming into this one. And he's a really big bantamweight. This guy is big at 135, looks very big, very athletic. And when I was taping this fight, I thought we actually might get Paneitz as the underdog, seeing as people really like Lee on Tapology, but Paneitz is the slight favorite, and I think that's justified. I feel like he can win here. I feel like he's a little bit stronger, a little bit better in the grappling, and a little bit just more athletic in general, and just has that really good experience as an amateur. I think it could be a close fight, but I do agree I slightly favor Sam Paneitz to win in this spot. Alright, and we have a banger fight coming up next between Cummins and Budka. Cummins is an up-and-comer from Memphis, Tennessee. He is 29 years old, had a 6-3 amateur career, and started his pro career off well, 2-0, 2 knockouts, wins 2 bare-knuckle boxing matches, wins 2 more MMA fights, one of them being Anthony Kalani in the main event of LFA 101. Nice win via KO for Cummins, who was the underdog in that spot, and that was really the fight that put him on my radar. So after that, he wins one more fight outside of the LFA, of course by KO, how else? And then he fights Josh Silveira for the light heavyweight title in LFA. Got KO'd early there, but Silveira obviously is a top prospect, is now signed with PFL. That fight was also really good for me because I did bet Josh Silveira to win by knockout at a really, really high number, and he came through earlier in that one. But yeah, so Cummins is now at 185 here, fighting at middleweight. That's an interesting move. I would assume that he's going to look very big at middleweight here, and he's coming up against another guy who is going to look big as well. But Cummins is explosive. He's athletic, heavy hands. He's physically very strong. His takedowns are powerful. He's coming up against Budka here, who had a 7-2 amateur career, won I think 4 amateur belts, maybe even more. But I know for sure he had 3 205-pound titles and a heavyweight title as an amateur. So now as a pro, he's 2-1. He's fought at a different weight class every fight. He's fought at 195-pound catch weight, 185 pounds, which is what he's at here, and also at 205 pounds as a professional fighter. And all 3 of those fights have come this year. He fought at the end of January in his pro debut, lost via submission in the 3rd, then wins his next fight, which was in March, and then wins another fight, which was a 9-second knockout, and that came 7 days after the previous fight. So This guy's definitely been active this year. He was a high school All-American wrestler, national champion. Has some serviceable boxing. I mean, nothing mind-blowing, but it serves its purpose. Very, very strong wrestler, though, like I mentioned. Has the accolades, and then has also demonstrated that in the cage against guys way bigger than him, right, in the MMA cage. So at 185 pounds, this is a big boy right here. So is his opponent. I'm looking at two huge men, big middleweights, explosive athletes. One of them has plus money next to their name. So I'm leaning towards the dog and Dylan Budka here. Cummins may have the advantage standing. He's done some boxing outside of MMA, had some bare knuckle experience, but I think Budka's wrestling is really legit. So I'm going to lean towards him, seeing as he's the underdog here, and I feel like this is a close fight. But yeah, definitely a close spot. Slightly going to go with the dog in this one, in Dylan Budka. All right, moving on up the card to the featured spot, we have a flyweight matchup, actually, and this is going to be between Tyus White and Jepsen. So Tyus White is a 4-1 prospect. He had a 4-0 amateur career where he had 2 victories on the LFA prelims. So he's making his second pro LFA appearance here. He lost his first outing, which was his most recent fight, where he dropped a decision to Tony Laramie. Very young, but very, very experienced regional fighter. And that's a really good experience for Tyus White to have, in my opinion. He looked very good leading up to that fight, but his level of competition had been quite low. I feel like he'll take something away from that last matchup, find areas to improve, find small things just to tweak and fine-tune about his game. He's very young still at 24, has a great frame for flyweight at 5'9". He's one of the bigger guys of the weight class, 75% finish rate. Really was just kind of overmatched with Laramie last fight, but like I said, I think it's good for him to have that experience, to realize, there are guys that there are levels to this game and you always need to be improving, and I feel like he's definitely, like I said, going to take something away from that last one. He was a Wisconsin state champ wrestler, also wrestled at technical college after high school, and he's going to be facing Jepsen here, who is a 6-3 pro, 32 years old, so will be the older fighter. He's 2-3 in his last 5, 2 losses to Nate Williams and 1 to Mondo Gutierrez on LFA. Hasn't beaten anyone with a winning record yet. His best win is probably his last fight, which was back in 2020, and he beat Stephen Merrill in that spot, who was 5-5 at the time. He is now 5-8. Not great competition, if that's your best win, but Merrill is an experienced guy. An extensive amateur career for Jepsen as well. He was 6-2 as an amateur. He has an 83% finish rate as a pro, and I honestly think he's a solid fighter. I think he's a good test for Tyus White here. But in the matchups that he's lost, aside from the dislocated elbow injury loss, which ended at under 20 seconds, he's just had some trouble dealing with guys who are good wrestlers, good grapplers, and I feel like White is definitely going to challenge him in that arena. Obviously, we have Jepsen coming back off a decent layoff as well, so that's something to take into account. I'm going with the younger prospect in Tyus White here. I'm not sure about the number. It seems pretty steep for a guy we've never seen beat someone with a winning record before, but he's facing another guy in the same boat here. I think that White can use his size, use his frame, and use his wrestling to get a win in this spot, so I'm going with Tyus White, the younger guy, to get the win in this fight. Co-main event is going to give us a featherweight matchup between Hyder Amil and Devante Sewell. And Hyder Amil is a 5-0 prospect, picked up 3 wins on the Bellator prelims, debuted in LFA in his last fight where he finished Hobson Jr. in the second round, has an 80% finish rate. And, Amil's a really tough guy. He's really relentless. He comes forward. He throws strikes. He wants to do damage. He's not afraid to be in the fire, man. This guy is, he's 5-0, and he's not one of these guys that's never ever faced any adversity. I mean, he's been in tough spots before and pushed through and really showed the heart, showed the durability, showed the toughness, showed the willingness to just go into the snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat, to go in there and overcome adversity. I like what I've seen out of Hyder Amil so far, coming up against Devante Sewell here. And Sewell is nicknamed the Grinder, and that's the type of style that he fights. Keeps it simple on the feet, lands good shots, goes for takedowns. That's what's, he just takes what's there for him, and I like that about the way that he fights. He's got a 9-6 record. He is 2-4 in his last 6, but to be fair to him, he's losing to pretty good fighters. I mean, he has losses to Aaron Phillips, Ari Farias, DeAndre Anderson, Cody Durden back in the day. Sewell does consistently fight good fighters, just doesn't really have a lot of success against that next level up, unfortunately. Usually his wins are over a lower caliber of opponent than he's going to be facing in the cage on Friday. He's got good takedowns, good talk control, but I just feel like Devante Sewell is probably going to give Amil a type of fight that he likes. I think that Amil can thrive in a grindy kind of fight. I feel like he can land good shots on the feet. He can be competitive in the grappling, and when they do separate, I feel like he can be explosive and win those moments in the transition phases of this fight. So I am going to go with Hyder Amil to extend his unbeaten streak as a pro. I think he improves to 6-0 here with the win over Devante Sewell. Don't love the price on this one, betting-wise. I'm not all over Amil from that perspective, but I do feel like he wins this fight against Devante Sewell on Friday night. So that's where I'm going to be from a pick perspective. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. It's time for the main event, and it's a great main event for the heavyweight championship between Thomas Peterson and Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Peterson is the champ. He's on a 10-fight win streak, including his amateur career. 5-0 as an amateur, 5-0 as a pro. All 5 pro wins have been knockouts, 100% finish rate. I was really impressed with this last fight where he beat Vernon Lewis for the vacant title. Vernon Lewis is a guy who's beaten UFC fighters, fought a lot of really good regional guys. That's an impressive win for Thomas Peterson. And I had never picked against Thomas Peterson before. But in that fight, the line, he opened up as such a heavy favorite over a guy in Vernon Lewis who had beaten UFC fighters, had fought a lot of top guys. And that was really just a spot where I needed Thomas Peterson to show me that it really is for real. And then after that, we can go from there. And he definitely did his job on that part. He showed me that he can do this against guys that are a step up in competition. So that's always really nice to see. Striking-wise for Peterson, he's going to have the 72-inch reach here, which is really not very long for the heavyweight division. 6'1", also isn't super tall compared to a lot of the division. Definitely those numbers aren't big, relatively speaking, in this matchup against Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Peterson also weighs in around 240 normally. He's a bit smaller than his opponent in most of his fights. But what he does bring to the cage, man, is that speed. This guy is fast at heavyweight, really fast, and he explodes into the pocket. He puts people's lights out, and that's kind of the formula for him. He likes to go to the takedowns, go to the wrestling, or just explode inside and land some bombs. So he's got a jiu-jitsu blue belt, I believe, but that wrestling background is where he really shines on the grappling side of things. He was a Minnesota state champion in high school. He was a junior college national champ as well, I believe. And he shoots in on those takedowns really quickly. He gets to the hips really, really quickly. We've seen him do good work on the ground, get to dominant positions, land lots of ground and pound, stop guys from there. And he's going to come up against Waldo Cortes-Acosta. So this is a really good matchup here. This is another a tough matchup for Thomas Peterson. He's definitely, once you're the champ, you're going to have to be facing tough guys. Faced a tough guy to win the belt, and he's facing a tough guy in his first defense in Waldo Cortes-Acosta, who is making his second LFA appearance here. He was able to stop Derek Weaver in the second round in his last LFA fight. He's 5-0 in MMA and also has pro boxing fights. He's 6-4 as a pro boxer. His most impressive MMA win is probably Mo Doris on Bellator. That was a nice win. He is 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, much longer than Peterson, almost 10-inch reach advantage on him. And, he's got the background in boxing like we mentioned. Pretty good hands, has a lot of reach to work with here. Swings pretty hard sometimes. He loaded up on a lot of shots in his last fight. A little bit predictable at times, I felt like, but had a much more patient approach in his fight against Mo Doris. Decent jab for Waldo Cortes-Acosta, and it's pretty heavy as well. Has a lot of reach to work with in this fight. Showed some okay takedown defense against Mo Doris. Was able to rack up some control time in his last fight against Derek Weaver. But Peterson is a really good wrestler. Cortes-Acosta will be the bigger fighter, so maybe he can lean on that a little bit. If he does find his way into top position, Peterson might have difficulty escaping from there just because of the, I'm assuming there's going to be a difference in weight here of, roughly 15, 20 pounds. I don't really see Cortes-Acosta having a game plan, which includes him looking to grapple offensively at all. But, like I said, if he did manage to somehow get into top position, that might be trouble for Peterson just because of the weight difference. But I think this is going to come down to Peterson being able to close the distance firstly, right? There isn't much for him at range in this one. He's at a reach disadvantage against a boxer. He needs to be able to use his speed and get inside, land shots, and shoot takedowns. Needs to be able to do that without getting clipped, right? That's the thing, especially when you get to the heavyweights. I think this is a volatile fight because both guys have fight-ending power. It's heavyweight. But speed kills, and I'm going to have to side with Thomas Peterson to be able to get inside, be able to work his game, land some big shots inside, maybe get the knockout, maybe get inside on some takedowns, and work some dominant positions, land some ground and pound. But this is a close fight. This is a really good test for Thomas Peterson. This is definitely, the fight I'm looking forward to most on this card. And I am going to be signing with Thomas Peterson to keep the belt and still at the end of the night. Should be a great fight. A lot of good fights on this card, guys. Really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for being with me for this prediction video. I wish you the best of luck this weekend on whatever bets you choose to make. And as always, I will catch you on the next video, guys. Take care.